Think back to July 1974. You are sitting in the way back, that magical rear-facing third row of a Ford Country Squire. There are no seatbelts. There is no air conditioning back here. You are staring out the back window, watching the telephone poles whip by, inhaling the smell of exhaust and hot vinyl. It was dangerous? Absolutely. But it was the vessel of our childhood freedom. But then, almost overnight, it vanished. It was hunted to extinction by a new invention called the minivan. We traded the style of the Country Squire for the utility of the Dodge Caravan. And in doing so, we didn't just change what we drove. We changed who we were. To understand the death of the station wagon, you have to understand its golden age. Because looking back from 2026, those vehicles seem like they belonged to an alien civilization. They were massive. A 1970s station wagon was essentially a pickup truck dressed in a tuxedo. They were built on full-frame chassis, made of heavy-gauge steel that could smash through a brick wall and barely scratch the chrome. They were 19 feet long, literally longer than some modern boats, and they were powered by big block V8 engines that sounded like thunderstorms. And of course, there was the wood. It wasn't real wood, but it didn't matter. That die-knock vinyl siding was the ultimate status symbol of the American middle class. It said, "I have arrived." It was a callback to the old woody wagons of the 1940s, but mass-produced for the suburbs. It peeled in the sun. It faded. But God help you if you scratched it. One of the reasons we hold on to these memories so tightly is because of the ritual. The station wagon was central to the great American road trip in a way that no SUV ever will be. Today, a road trip effectively means moving your living room down the highway. Kids plug into iPads. Parents listen to podcasts. The GPS tells you exactly where to turn. There is no friction. But in 1975, the road trip was an expedition. It started with the packing. The cargo capacity of a Country Squire or an Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser was staggering. You could fit a cooler, a tent, 4 suitcases, a charcoal grill, and a golden retriever in the back, and still have room to see out the window. It was a cavern on wheels. And then there was the map. Because we didn't have GPS, the front seat was a command center. Your dad was driving, and your mom was the navigator, wrestling with a giant Rand McNally atlas that was impossible to fold back correctly once it was opened. Getting lost was part of the experience. You would end up on some 2-lane highway in the middle of Nebraska, looking for a landmark, while the temperature inside the car climbed to 90 degrees. That heat is something we forget. Most wagons had air conditioning, but it never reached the way back. If you were the youngest sibling stuck in that rear-facing seat, you were in a greenhouse. You were baking. You stuck your legs to the vinyl seat, and when you moved, it sounded like Velcro tearing apart. You rolled the window down, by hand, cranking that handle until your arm was tired, and let the hot wind blast you in the face. And we were bored. Boredom was a key ingredient of the 1970s childhood. We didn't have screens to distract us. We were forced to look at the world. We counted license plates. We played I Spy. We annoyed our siblings until our dad did the arm swing, that terrifying move where he would swing his right arm into the back seat without taking his eyes off the road, hoping to connect with a kneecap to restore order. Don't make me allow this car over. It was the empty threat of the century. He was never going to pull over. He was making good time. Let's talk about the specific titans of the road. Every neighborhood had them. There was the Ford Country Squire, the bestseller, the standard bearer of the wood-paneled fleet. But there were others. There was the Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. It was the spaceship of wagons. It had that raised glass roof over the rear passengers, the skylights. It felt futuristic. If your family had a Vista Cruiser, you were the cool kids. There was the Chevy Caprice Estate. It had a clamshell tailgate that was an engineering marvel. The glass slid up into the roof, and the tailgate slid down under the floor. It disappeared completely. It was magic. Of course, if it broke, you could never open your trunk again. But when it worked, it was spectacular. And there were the massive Chryslers, the town and country wagons, which felt like driving a luxury hotel room. These cars were the free-range environment for our generation. Today, children in cars are cargo. They are strapped in, locked down, and pacified. But in 1975, if your parents folded the seats down flat, the back of that wagon was a wrestling mat. It was a bedroom. It was a playground. We didn't know it at the time, but we were living in the final days of an era. The first wound came from the government. In 1973, we faced the oil embargo. The price of gas quadrupled. People were waiting in lines for hours just to get 5 gallons. Suddenly, driving a 5,000-pound behemoth with a 460 cubic inch V8 that got 8 miles to the gallon wasn't a status symbol anymore. It was a liability. Then came the CAFE standards, Corporate Average Fuel Economy. The government told Chevy and Ford, "You can't just build tanks anymore. You have to get better gas mileage." The engineers panicked. They started shrinking the wagons. They chopped off the length. They replaced the V8s with struggling V6s. They took away the frames and mandated lighter materials. By 1980, the majestic country Squire had become a shadow of its former self. It looked boxy, tired, and weak. But the wagon could have survived fuel efficiency. It had survived wars and recessions before. What it couldn't survive was the minivan. November 2nd, 1983. That is the date on the tombstone of the station wagon. That was the day the first Dodge Caravan rolled off the assembly line in Windsor, Ontario. It was a brilliant piece of engineering. Lee Iacocca, the man who saved Chrysler, realized something simple. American parents were tired of bending over. In a station wagon, you had to lean down to buckle a kid in. In a minivan, you could walk right in. It had a sliding door. It had cup holders. It was practical. And that word, practical, is the assassin of cool. The marketing for the minivan was genius. They didn't sell it as a car. They sold it as a module, a life support system. They told moms, "This vehicle understands you." And moms listened. In 1984, the minivan was a revolution. It sold out instantly. It became the new status symbol of the suburbs. But it was a different kind of status. The station wagon said, "I am going on an adventure." The minivan said, "I am going to soccer practice." The station wagon was low, sleek, and powerful. It had a hood that stretched out for a mile. You looked cool driving it, even if you were just going to the grocery store. The minivan was a box on wheels. Nobody in the history of the world has ever looked cool driving a minivan. It is an appliance. It is a refrigerator with wheels. It signaled to the world, "I have given up. My life is now entirely about utility." By 1990, the station wagon was effectively dead. Ford stopped making the country Squire in 1991. The Buick Roadmaster held on a little longer, like a zombie, until 1996. But the era was over. We thought we were upgrading. We thought we were trading an old gas-guzzling dinosaur for a modern, efficient family hauler. But look at what we lost in the trade. We lost the connection to the road. The station wagon was a car. It handled like a car. You sat low to the ground. You felt the road. Today, everyone drives an SUV or a crossover, which are just tall station wagons without the charm. We sit high up, detached from the movement, surrounded by airbags and sensors that beep if we drift an inch out of our lane. We lost the serendipity of the way back. Modern cars are designed for isolation. Every passenger has their own zone, their own climate control, their own charging port, their own screen. We travel together, but we are alone. In the old wagon, you were forced to interact. You were jammed together. You had to fight for the armrest. You had to talk. You had to invent games because there was nothing else to do. Those arguments, those games, those long hours of staring out the window, that was where the memories were made. And we lost the aesthetic of optimism. The station wagons of the 1960s and 70s were designed by people who believed the future was going to be awesome. They put fins on them. They put chrome on them. They put fake wood on them not because they had to, but because they could. They were excessive. They were loud. They were unapologetically American. Modern family cars are designed in wind tunnels to minimize drag coefficients. They all look like melted jelly beans. They are gray, silver, or white. They have no personality because personality hurts fuel economy. When the last big wood-paneled wagon rolled off the line, we didn't just lose a car model, we lost the visible proof of the American middle-class high-water mark. We lost the symbol of a time when a single breadwinner could afford a brand new 19-foot-long car, a house with a yard, and a vacation to the Grand Canyon, all on one salary. The station wagon was the chariot of the baby boom. It brought you home from the hospital when you were born. It took you to your first day of school. It took you to college. And now they are gone. You see them at car shows sometimes, restored by collectors, sitting on the grass like dinosaur bones. And when you walk past them, you don't just smell old vinyl and gasoline. You smell your childhood. You remember the feeling of your dad's arm resting on the top of the bench seat. You remember the sound of the heavy steel door slamming shut. Thunk, a sound that felt like safety. You remember the struggle of trying to unstick your legs from the vinyl on a hot day. You remember a time before safety ratings and cup holders took over the world. The minivan won. It was more practical, it was more efficient, it was safer. But looking at a 1974 Country Squire with its peeling wood and its massive grille, you have to admit one thing. The minivan might have won the sales war, but the station wagon won our hearts. And no matter how many cup holders they give us, they will never be able to give us that feeling back. The road is safer now, but it is a whole lot less interesting.